Have you ever tried to tell a friend, coworker, or family member a story only to realize they stopped listening to what you were saying before you were even halfway through? Today's episode will cover 3 ways to be a better storyteller during a tabletop RPG game by using a simple structure, staying relevant to the moment, and being brief. Welcome to Claim to Game, the podcast helping busy people master tabletop role playing games one game at a time. I'm Clint.scheirer, and I've been an educator for over 12 years and have helped gamers of all levels quickly grasp tabletop RPGs so they can enjoy playing them to the fullest. Stay tuned so that you can make your claim to game. Hello, and welcome back to episode 5, season 1 of Claim to Game, a predominantly educational fun podcast in which I am daring to coin the word funjucational. Just like taking a ride on the magic school bus instead of a super cool Miss Frizzle, you get me, Clint Dizzle Faux Shizzle. Last week, I went to a surprise party for my friend Jake. It was a place here in Milwaukee in the area where I live called First and Bowl. By the name, I thought it was just going to be a bowling alley. It was far more than that. The main attraction was a game where you split into 2 teams, each team taking turns knocking down the other team's bowling pins using footballs. The game was straightforward, the company was great, and I had a good time. Now, during the evening, I was talking to a dude who was also there to celebrate my friend's birthday. I'd never met this guy before, but I ended up having ample time to learn about his family, his profession, blah, blah, blah. And my favorite question that I ask now to new acquaintances isn't the typical, so what do you do? Like, what is your job? Instead, for the past couple of years, I've switched gears and I instead ask people, what do you love? Or what do you like to do? The answers I receive are far more interesting, and the person I'm speaking with usually lights up and could go on for hours telling me all the deets about their favorite hobby or pastime, and I love it. And this guy was no exception. This guy happened to love video games, and we were talking about favorite video games, fun new releases, etc., until we somehow got on the topic of artificial intelligence. And this led us to talk about the Terminator movies and how in that movie, AI in the future takes over the world. Everything was going along just smoothly until I ran into that moment. You know the moment. I'm sure you do. When you open your mouth, you start telling a story that you think is interesting, and you see the light, the understanding, and the attention leave the eyes of the person you're speaking with. Their attention is lost. My social snafu was related to me using way too many words to explain how I wished I had backed the tabletop RPG Kickstarter for the Terminator game by Nightfall Games when I had the chance. Was there anything wrong with me sharing this information with this guy? No, not at all. Was it okay that I lost this guy's attention? Of course. He was just another guy at a party. My job wasn't to entertain him for every moment of his evening, but I did notice he stopped listening. Yes, I did. And I've noticed this moment when I've played role playing games and it's my turn to speak. I don't like these moments when playing games. It distracts me. I get self conscious. And in many cases, with just a little thought, I could have avoided these moments or this moment altogether. And so can you. Let's use a word picture to help us remember the 3 helpful techniques which can help us be better storytellers during our games. Imagine that you have a USB drive that we just need to plug into your brain to allow you to download these techniques to reprogram the way that we tell stories. USB stands for U, use a simple structure, S, stay relevant to the moment, and B, be brief. Okay, this first technique is going to feel really simple when I say it out loud, but think of the structure of a story. The one you learned in elementary or primary school. A story typically has a beginning, a middle, and an end. A story you are telling to another person should also contain a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's how our brain works. It's what the people who are listening, expect. Leaving out this structure as you are playing a tabletop role playing game during your turn will leave people tuning you out if you are speaking all over the place. How does this look? Example time. I'm Georgina, the old weathered druid. I'm a dwarf, and I am with some adventurers who are in a deep, dark, cavernous cave, seeking out the magic amulet of a long dead warrior king whose tomb has never been found. Okay, cool. Got it. Old dwarf druid woman, party of adventurers looking for a powerful magical amulet in a creepy cave holding the tomb of a dead warrior king. When Keith, the player whose character is Georgina, the dwarven druid, is getting ready to take his turn and let everyone know what Georgina is going to do, he should give the group a beginning, middle, and possibly an end. In most tabletop RPGs, the end of a player's turn, or when it's their turn to talk or storytell, will be guided by the results of some sort of dice roll or mechanic. So it's possible Keith can't give an end until that takes place, until he rolls the dice and there's a result. So he starts with what's in his control. Keith is going to give the beginning and middle of what Georgina is about to do and what that looks like. So Keith takes a deep breath, and here he goes.
Oh, yeah, so Georgina has always hated the dark, so she pulls out of her robes two brightly glowing luminescent mushrooms.
Follow me and stay close,
She whispers. She moves forward with her guiding light and chooses to walk down the tunnel to the left, hoping the tomb is down that direction.
Well done, Keith. He gave us a beginning and a middle. We know his character hates the dark. She needs to see. She uses glowing mushrooms to see, which is the beginning. And then she makes a decision to walk down the chosen path in search of the treasure that the party is seeking. That's the middle. The end of this micro story that he's created might have the game master asking for a dice roll in which he or she will let Keith interpret and tell what is being seen or discovered down the tunnel. Or the game master might just tell the ending as the facilitator of the adventure what Keith is going to see. Either way, those around the table are tuned in because Keith's beginning and middle stay true to our next technique, which is S. Stay relevant to the moment. In our pretend scenario, the task of this party is to find the magical amulet of the long dead warrior king. Keith's character, Georgina, should be choosing to move the story along in that direction. Keith should be choosing that choice to move the story along. Now, it's okay to have some banter, some quirky character moments, or memorable side quests along the way. Is that okay? Of course. That is the charm of playing these types of games. But even so, the action should at least move the story in the direction of the final goal, even if just a little bit. Let's give a non example of staying relevant. I'll use Keith again, and we'll say that he has forgotten the rule of staying relevant to the moment. Here is his micro story, his moment again, with beginning and middle, but without relevancy, without staying relevant.
Oh, yeah, so Georgina's pretty hungry since she forgot to eat breakfast the previous morning. So she decides she's going to go back to the tavern the character stayed at the night before to get some food.
Goodbye, everyone. I'll see you a little later.
She leaves the cave to head back there.
Keith, Keith, Keith. See how his actions are not relevant to moving the story forward? Not only did he split the party, he split up the story into two stories and he alienated himself from the other players. They will not care to listen to what he is doing the next turn or for many turns after because his character, Georgina, is no longer relevant to their moment or to their story. He has lost the connection. The next technique, the last one, is be brief. And I think it is more important to a conversational short form story to be brief. There can be many wonderful stories told aloud or written down, spoken for long hours or hundreds of pages thick, yet they are still captivating stories. When I say be brief, I'm referring to both game masters and players at a tabletop RPG table, sitting with others, collaborating, sharing the narrative. No one, and I would emphasize, no one likes when one person drones on and on about what their character is doing. At least I don't. Share the love, share the spotlight. Sharing the time to speak doesn't mean you have to be devoid in your turn from any color or excitement or flair. It doesn't mean you can't fully investigate, examine, or share all that you plan or want to share with the others within the game world. It simply means be mindful of how long you are taking the time to tell your relevant beginning, middle, and end. Your story is like a mini commercial. Your goal is to share in a clear way what your character's piece is in the narrative. Commercials keep to about 15 to 60 seconds to maximize the attention span of viewers while sharing the message. I would suggest keeping to that rough time frame, 15 to 60 seconds before passing the spotlight back to the GM or to the next player. Anything more than that probably doesn't need to be said for the sake of everyone at the table and the captivation of your audience. Remember, your audience, for the short time it's your turn to talk, is the other players. Treat them with the respect that they deserve, and they will respect you with their attention. Okay, final recap. How do we become more captivating with our storytelling when playing a tabletop RPG game? Remember to plug in your USB. U, use a simple structure. S, stay relevant to the moment. And B, be brief. Download these strategies and upload them to your brain the next time you play your next game. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. Please join us next week. Yep, that's right. We are a weekly podcast now. Next week, we will continue our quest, Claiming Goblin Quest. We'll address that quest, flesh out the bones of the adventure, and look at some of the high quality adventure hooks to help you get started if you need a little push into the creative pond. If you liked what you heard today, please share the Claim to Game podcast with others. Share it at least with one other person who you know listens to podcasts and who could benefit from what this show has to offer. And until the next time we make our claim to game, one game at a time.